Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live episode of The Yield. Today is a very special episode. It's our 100th episode, so we're doing it in front of a live audience in our New York office, right in the bullpen, and we have one of our favorite guests of all time here, Nicole Casperson, with us from the WTFintech podcast.
Thank you. One of the favorite guests. I'm putting that on my resume.
It's top two, and I don't know if there's a close second to you. So
yes,
don't tell Jeff Eagles I said that.
It'll be our secret. But excited to be here. Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely fantastic, and always great to have you in, and loving your podcast. You guys started a little while, but you have to be creeping up in numbers there too.
Yeah, I was about to say, so you're celebrating 100. I'm celebrating, I just crossed 50, closing season 2. So
halfway there.
Hey. All right, I'll let you know when I get to 100.
How long are your seasons, out of curiosity?
They are, my first season, I was a little bit crazy. I recorded a ton of podcasts to begin with because I didn't really know what I was doing. And so my first season's like 25 episodes or something insane. And then I finally got like a head of audio and a team and someone to like train me and reel me in. And now my episodes or my seasons are about 12 to 15 episodes.
That's awesome. So you got your own version of our producer, Martin, more or less.
I do.
Were you doing all the work yourself before that?
Not entirely, but it started out with me doing, I was just recording on Riverside, kind of myself, and we were freelancing the editing process before Workweek, the company that owns WTFintech, finally acquired an audio team and brought them. They're from the UK, brought them to New York, and now I have a whole team. It's cool.
It's a great feeling, right?
It's a really good feeling because now I don't have to worry about messing up. Someone will take care of that for me.
Just edit it out on post.
Exactly. Like, okay, please fix that.
Unlike the live shows we're doing right now, and typically we do live once a week, and that was definitely a cause of the pandemic. So.
Yes. Well, anything you can do to jazz up a Zoom recording because those are boring. Seriously. I like that you said that because for me, as I'm going into season 3 of which I rebranded to Humans of FinTech, the podcast, I'm thinking about how do I continue to create different like scenes for the actual recording. So this is cool, right? Like I thought we were going to maybe be in your studio, but instead we're out here in the middle of the office, like creating different sceneries, I think is really good. Sceneries? Might be a word.
Sets maybe?
Sets? I've only had one cup of coffee today. But creating different scenes actually can make it a lot more interesting for your audience to continue to watch, right? So, and doing it live like this or in person is a game changer. A clip I post on Instagram or a reel of me talking to someone like this gets 25K views, as opposed to like maybe a couple hundred if I'm doing a Zoom recording.
As you're saying that, our social media manager, Brendan's taking video of us
to
go straight into social. So
all
hopefully,
of the content.
Hopefully your magic wears off and we get 25,000 views on that one.
I know. It was very exciting. It's either Instagram's new algorithm that made that happen, or maybe I think it was the setting and the content.
I'm always going to go with it's probably the setting, the content, and the host versus the algorithm, but what do I know?
Exactly. None of us work at Instagram, so.
Definitely. No, not yet. Sets are definitely really interesting. I mean, we've tried to film as much on location as possible. I said we started out on Zoom. So in that entire world, peak pandemic, I think we were recording episodes July 2020 and launched a month later. So that was everything done in the virtual world at that point. And as soon as we get back in, we finished building out the studio. And shortly thereafter, Martin joined, which he added a whole new level as producer to us. And getting Peter Kerr, who's typically our host, he came on and added a whole new life because we were rotating hosts before that. So obviously consistency is key. So to have Peter on board was massive. I've kind of stolen his seat today. He liked to joke that it's episode 100, so it's my day. And I'll go right back behind the scenes after this and give Peter all the hair and makeup and the attention he really deserves.
Right?
But he's been around everywhere and different sets. He did episodes live at the Masters, F1,
cool.
And it's really fun being able to take our traveling circus on the road.
I completely agree. That's like my dream, to be able to take my like podcasts and start to do it live everywhere, whether it means I fly to the guest or the guest flies into our studio. We have a studio in Williamsburg. And yeah, like I said, every single time we do it, the content is better. There's something about not having to worry about the delay of a Zoom or like a video call. Whereas here, like, we can see each other, we have body language, we have like true eye contact that isn't just over a screen. It makes the world of difference. And now there's so much content out there. It is so oversaturated. You really have to do whatever it takes to spice it up.
So let's get into that a little bit, because we both obviously have fintech and investing type shows, and there are hundreds of others out there, some coming from your biggest publishers in the world like Bloomberg or Investopedia, Seeking Alpha. So how do you really cut through the noise with that and just reach your audience and produce great quality content while still maintaining a growing audience? Yeah.
Big question. So when I first started, I came in with the mindset of I absolutely have to be different. My being is incredibly different, especially in our fintech space. There are not a lot of hosts who look like me that host fintech focused podcasts. So already a big uniqueness with me there. But how do I bring that personal aspect of myself to an actual show? I noticed that there was no show that was focusing on the real human elements of the founders, investors, and decision makers, and just really, really cool people in our fintech space. So that's the route I wanted to go down. I was like, why? No one's asking these folks about their personal journeys, and not just, shouting from the mountaintop of success. I don't think that in today's content world, audiences are so interested in hearing that. I actually think that they're getting more interested in hearing about the trenches, like the nuances of how do you actually reach the mountaintop of success. And that's what I'm talking about on my podcast. It's almost more like philosophical than anything else. And seriously, like, we're talking about some like real stuff and like traumas and self-reflection and like the work that you do within to actually become an amazing leader in the fintech space.
Could you give us an example of that? Just maybe a guest that really stood out to you and their message to the audience?
For sure. Oh gosh, so many, especially in season 2 when I got more comfortable with this idea, because I wasn't sure if it would resonate or not, and it does. But I would shout out Sophia Abdul-Razak. She is the founder and CEO of GoodFind. It is a fintech startup that focuses on revolutionizing the food truck industry, which is just very cool. But she left her like cushy job at Wells Fargo to pursue this, and she. Not only is she a Black woman in the industry, but she went to Virginia Tech during the school shooting. So she shared that story, and she shared about how it took a ton of time for her to, and she lost friends, she lost close ones. It could have been her. There's so much guilt that comes with something that traumatic. But when you share that with others, which she's learning to do after all these years, you become closer to them and you become a more personable, relatable person. And unless you share those traumas and demagnetize all of the things that happen to you in your life, you're really not making decisions that are really who you are. You have to, and you're not going to be the best leader that you can be. So you just have to like put that out there and share it and learn to be better. That's how we grow.
How has the audience reception been so far? Because it is a very hard-hitting podcast that goes a bit, and just the story you gave, people really open up to it. So do you get a lot of feedback from your listeners that they were inspired to continue with their dreams, or they're better leaders and entrepreneurs for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in our work culture, there's so much, and the pandemic shift this, right? There's just it's hard to decide how to be your authentic self. But the problem is that if you're not your authentic self to begin with, then as you climb up the ladder of success, then you reach the top, say, and you did it, but with all these values that maybe weren't really yours, or you do it with all these intentions that were just focused on reaching the top. And then you start to look at yourself and you go, great, I reached success, but who am I? Like I don't even know this person, right? Like this person isn't even, and guess what? Now you reach success, but like you're not happy, or you're not, or you want to leave and you want to do something else because it doesn't feel right to you. So I think that message really resonates, especially when my audience is a ton of founders and CEOs and just like folks that have felt these during their journey. I also like, a part of my audience is I like to call them like the FinTech curious. So people that are, you know, probably like they're professionals, they've been working for some time, but maybe they're interested in taking the leap. Maybe they work for a bank and they're like, wow, this FinTech industry is like mission driven and wholesome and like I can be myself. Like, let's do it. So it's more than just ping pong tables and beanie babies or beanie baby chairs, bean chairs,
Bean bags,
beanbag chairs.
There you go. A beanie baby chair could be something to bring back.
That would be cute.
Or
that probably exists.
Somewhere down the eBay rabbit hole, I would have to say.
Probably.
But it's really interesting hearing those stories and how we met and kind of the backgrounds and the overlap from your time investment news. I was at Seeking Alpha before, and then rolling like the financial media world into the FinTech world, and huge crossover, but obviously a little different now. Where Yieldstreet's on an investing platform, so we have our podcast that we're on right now, The Yield, but it's all about in the sense of educating our member base and helping people to learn more about investing from the in alternatives at that rate. So really in tying that back into like, how do we help grow the platform? How does this help educate through content? And yeah, it's definitely more art than science some days.
Exactly. It's really personal. So we as humans are communal creatures, right? And the pandemic forced us to be even more communal creatures, right? And it forced us to do it in a digital way. So, and whether we like it or not, that is just the realities, right? Like how many people here are on their computers or on their phones or like constantly engaging? You're being social, it's just you're doing it digitally. And at the end of the day, the pandemic created this world where people don't just buy products or want to use a service or a FinTech company or use like whatever your FinTech company offers because they want to get rich fast or because they want to, I mean, there's probably some people out there that want that, but that's not the majority. They want to use your product because they connect with you. So like what is the story that you're telling? What is the personal journey of, say, your founder? And how are you sharing that with the world? And how are you having them be personally connected to an audience that is so hyper engaged and invested in who your founder is or whoever your spokesperson is that they will buy, use, whatever it is? That is the audience that I have, right? My audience is so invested in what I do that I even have a section in my newsletter about music. And they tell me, they're like, oh my gosh, like Nicole, listen to this music. I want to listen to that music.
Do you have your own What the FinTech Spotify playlist yet?
I should. I'm an Apple Music user. Don't cancel me. But I know. I just started that way. And anyways, but that's the thing is like it's all about building community. And that's what content has the power to do. So instead of thinking of it like, oh, I'm just on Twitter to like chase clout or chase a following, I would look at it as I'm on Twitter to have reach, to spread a positive message, to build a community, to diversify my network. And then in that way, you can really make some meaningful change, and then you can really build an audience and a user base that will not stray from you no matter what.
So you said something really interesting there I want to circle back to of using Twitter to kind of spread that message, whereas social media to a lot, and most of our marketing team is in the audience right now, and they're probably all going to laugh about this, but social, just all of your social channels, they're tools to us, where a lot of people use them like it's community and you're keeping up with friends or keeping up with the Kardashians, whatever you're going to use Instagram and TikTok for at that point. But for those of us within marketing, and especially in the podcast industry, they're tools to get the message out so people will join your community at the end of the day. And it helps us to better educate and really we joke, we have like Peter's hot takes in different points. So it's just really a way to draw people into that broader listener community.
And when you think about what excites me about the future of FinTech is really this generational shift. We're in a space right now where I feel like millennial,
Shamefully.
I know I really want to identify as a Gen Zer, but I'm a couple years off. Okay, but but thinking about Gen Z, they are so right. They're the ones that are so heavily invested in that community, right? They have there's TikTok, there's all these things that they use, you know, even instead of Google, to decide what they're going to do with maybe their finances or whatever. But there's this entire generational shift that needs to happen where, and I think we'll see it as the Gen Z demographic ages and continues to build more wealth. I think we'll start to see the almost like slow removal of this mindset of that we millennials have, which is, oh, my parents opened up a Bank of America account or X bank account, and I must keep using it because I'm too scared to use a FinTech account or like a neobank, and that's scary. They haven't been around. What do I do? Or like or an investing platform or whatever. So I think the traditional mindset will start to shift, and I think content will be a huge factor in that, right? And we just have to be like consistent about it and spreading the message, and because at the end of the day, FinTech brand awareness is still incredibly low. People don't know what this is.
That's really true, and it's something I think we do as a marketing team at Yieldstreet do a pretty good job combating every day. We take a lot of big swings, but you're right. It's FinTech finance and investing is a crowded space with a lot of older players that are powerhouses that have budgets that we could only dream of one day. But exactly. FinTechs are also afforded, and just startups in general are also afforded the ability to be very scrappy, pivot quick, and take those risks that you can actually try new things and see what works, what doesn't work, and do everything really well and optimize pretty fast.
Exactly. And your content can be scrappy too, right? Like I started pretty scrappy. I would probably still consider it scrappy-ish. I mean, I have like a whole production team and like audio team and a video editors and the whole shebang. But like, that's the beauty of the changing world. You know, a viral video doesn't have to be some highly produced thing. Video of like someone with just taking a selfie and like saying something important or saying something funny or interesting goes viral and then has reach, and that turns into what? That can turn into a business or whatever, or a personal brand. So that's kind of the cool part of all the shifts we've seen, is that you don't necessarily need those deep pockets to have reach and value.
Absolutely. And the one thing we've both mentioned a few times is like our journeys into our current podcast now during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. How do you think the pandemic really affected people's learning habits, content consumption habits, and really they're just in terms of purchasing new products or using new softwares? Did it help? Did it hurt? Has it stayed neutral?
Right. Well, I think it was Plaid that put out some data, I believe it was last year, that said that during the pandemic, 90% of folks that were surveyed for this study said that they use FinTech to manage their finances. That's pretty cool. 90%, that's pretty cool.
Gone are the days of usernames and passwords on a notepad somewhere. Right,
exactly. I mean, well, and it's like how I describe FinTech. I'm like, did you use your digital wallet to like get into the subway today? I know I did. FinTech.
Metro card only.
Hey, payments. Gone are the days of the Metro card. Those are a novelty. But anyway, so the pandemic, kind of back to the communal aspect, every single person in this room and every single person watching this right now, we all literally went through a massively traumatic experience together, and that was called the coronavirus pandemic. And a massive social justice reckoning that followed. So because we've all been through something together, it's just like, it's also this, and so much information has been revealed, and so many people took the time to like self-evaluate, right? That's why we had like the Great Resignation and job shuffling and all the things. So how do you kind of speak to an audience that you have gone through a shared trauma with, right? How do you that's what you think about. It has made us closer than ever, and it's back to that personal aspect. And I think that's how you get users to use certain products or whatever. Because now I think we're in a place where folks are a little skeptical given the market condition, I guess, which I think it may be right now could be an easy time to say, oh no, I must go back to traditional financial ways because, or like use a traditional bank or traditional investing account because the world is crashing and that's who I'm gonna like trust for some reason. So yeah, we just need to work on establishing that trust because things are so shaky between going through a traumatic pandemic and now this current market condition.
Definitely. Well, at least from my perspective, the pandemic was really interesting because you already had a trend in the startup world, right? Mm-hmm. Like people were very outside of, and again, we're both millennials, so we'll work off the millennial factor. And I can only speak for myself. They're not my views are not a representation of Yieldstreet as a whole. But I will say, everybody that works in the startup world you do at some point, depending on what stage of startup you're at, you give up the ideals you may have been brought up with. For example, I had this conversation recently, but the concept of a 401k, I don't know how many startups have them and don't have them or what the matches are like, but that when you join a company, it's almost replaced with the upside of having options or equity. At that point. You don't necessarily concern yourself. So a major vehicle, an investment vehicle more or less, that was utilized by previous generations, specifically our parents' generations, no longer it does, but it doesn't play a huge factor in your decision making when you're taking on a new job, specifically at a startup. And then the pandemic also really led into everybody being at home with more time and wanting to invest more. You saw wild volatility in the markets, but that also gave way to, okay, how do I go about this? What do I learn? How do I do this? And it was content consumption. You had way more time. You're sitting at home. You're not in an office where you have to be conscious of what's playing in the background, or you could take a 5-minute break and read a new article or watch a YouTube video like you like to do without having somebody really look over your shoulder. And again, we saw it. How many people were like, I finished Netflix? What do you mean you finished Netflix? How's that possible?
Move on to Disney Plus next, apparently.
They were going through platform to platform, and then all of a sudden they were bored enough that Reddit and subreddit and Wall Street Bets, and here we are with meme stocks.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to content, you're kind of getting at that content consumption has not changed, despite us normalizing post-pandemic. Instead, it's become really more about experiences. Like my spicy take is that things have to start happening in real life, even if you're filming it, right? And like what we're doing now, this is the kind of thing that is going to be more enticing to an audience than a Zoom call or a video call or whatever. Like I'm about to get to the point where I'm like, if you want to be on my podcast, you can fly to New York, or I got to fly to you, because I said, I think when we were offline, but like a video of us like this gets 25K views, whereas the Zoom call does not, right? Or I said that earlier. So it's like,
it's the quality as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's like the thing to think about if you're a fintech company ready to build content or start a podcast. It's like a literal way for you to speak to your user base or a future user base. And it's the only way, it really is like the only real way to stand out in an oversaturated market, which it currently is. There's like so many fintechs out there, like so many investing platforms, so many things.
Definitely. What are some of so with that in mind, what are some of the trends that you see coming to fruition in maybe the next like 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. I guess something I like wish would happen. I recently saw an article where the Stripe CEO was saying how the APAC market, Asia Pacific market, is very underestimated. In fact, I think I'm going to write about it in my newsletter tomorrow. So sign up for that. Self plug.
Shout outs are okay. Self promotion is totally acceptable here.
And then you sign up under Nicole Casperson. So I think that it'd be cool to see more expansion into international markets. I think that we tend to be incredibly America-centric in the fintech space, which, we here in America. But, don't be so closed-minded to seeing like opportunities internationally. We just saw like Alloy expand internationally just like last week, and I talked to them about that, and that's super cool. But there's just like fintech has barely scratched the surface. There's a lot of like doom and gloom because, oh my gosh, like we made all this money last year and this year the money isn't as much. But it's like, come on guys, we just normalized like a massive growth, and now we think that it's all scary because that growth is not happening again for another year. And it's like, come on guys, like the party had to kind of chill out for a minute. There's like free money everywhere, only if you're like Adam Newman. But anyways, I know. Well, I did think about that.
Big deal, and it's a positive. I think for Adam, we just had a huge discussion in our weekly content meeting about that, and we should have a video about it coming out soon. So
interesting. I have to see that. I got some spicy takes there, but separate. Read my newsletter from last night.
You're obviously a huge fan of the HBO show.
I didn't watch We Crashed, and I love Princess Mia just as much as anyone, but I know how it ends.
For now.
For now. That's why this raise happened, so they could create more content.
I'm all for it.
To create another TV
anything
show.
to create more content and more TV, especially based on things currently unfolding in front of us, why not?
I will say the only thing I would say with the TV show, it is pretty cool to see things happening in our world, in our industry, become big massive TV shows like Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway. It's pretty cool.
And from the content perspective, I think a lot of people think it's happening faster than it used to, whereas it's like, hey, we were out of the WeWork scenario for all of 6 months, and then hey, here's the show. The Uber show with Joseph Gordon-Levitt was another one. These things happened very recently, and now you have kind of fiction docu-series being made about them almost in real time. But that's not really different throughout history. You had movies that were turned around very fast back in the day, TV shows, documentaries, things like that. But we just have the technology and honestly the short attention span to do it even faster than before in a much more distributed way.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, content-wise, so tying anything that you can do to like make culturally relevant content. So like what's going on in the news that you can, leverage your content as, say, an alternative investing platform, right, to talk about to your audience or whatever, or a neobank or whatever you're doing. I think that is an interesting play. And then even getting fun and unique with it. I've seen like other creators that I know that write their newsletters. One of my favorites, like shout out to Alex Johnson from FinTech Takes, because he recently, he's also a workweek creator. He recently did an entire newsletter where he ranked FinTech company logos. And that's it. He's not like a marketer. It was like a completely...
We haven't seen this. Was Yieldstreet on there by any chance?
Oh, it was a completely subjective like thing that, it's just him as a personal, like Yieldstreet was not on there, I'm sorry. But there's a few companies on there that I would have put on there or whatever, but it was like, he's not a designer, he's not nothing. He just was like, this is just what I think, because he's like, oh, the cursive of this one just makes me think, ooh, la la. Like, it's just so funny. But that's like, that kind of content slaps. People love that stuff. People love like funny, they love fun, and just as much as the seriousness and that kind of thing. But I think bringing a little lightheartedness, like I think I might rank, you just gave me the idea to like do a whole newsletter on, should I like rank FinTech founders and like who should play them in their movie? That would be a great idea.
That would be amazing.
Without offending anyone.
I'm gonna have to say we just did a whole series. Shout out to our creative director Jess for spearheading our Cal Penn video series. Phenomenal.
That's cool.
Ads. Yeah, phenomenal ads, and Cal Penn's incredible. But if I have to vote for anybody who's going to play Malind in a series, I think it's Cal Penn. Now.
I mean, that's obviously duh.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh my gosh, that'd be a great movie. Feel free to invite me.
Our chief people officer Joel's laughing here, and I was like, I think I'm getting in trouble for this one. That's
the trick, though. Yeah, like offending people, but you just have to. People need to not take things too seriously. At the end of the day, we're like all in fintech, right? So we're all working to completely like disrupt the broken traditional financial system. That's some heavy stuff. Sometimes it's fun to get fun and light with the content and relate it to what's going on in pop culture or other things.
And you're going against the big players in the world.
Yeah, and they're not doing that stuff. Please. Amex,
JP Morgan, BlackRock, they've all been around for a very long time.
Right. And they have, their place in the world. But I think that, like I said, something I'm excited about for the future of fintech is that generational shift of Gen Zers getting more wealth and not seeing a big bank as the end all be all. I must have an account with a traditional financial system or else I'm in danger. Like they don't think that way.
That's honestly, it's such a great point because that's obviously, given what Yieldstreet does, such a hot topic for us is that we're fully broad spectrum at this point. That yes, we do have our target demo, which is a little older. However, it's the content and the education piece and the marketing is all about bringing people in at the earliest ages possible to where, hey, if you're meeting the minimum requirements to be an investor on the platform, you should be on our platform at some point. We even have the non-accredited investor products as the gateways to those. And you've interviewed and talked to Malin before. One of his favorite sayings is 60-40 portfolio is dead. So bringing it into a new model, whatever that may be, whether alts are going to be 5, 10, 20% of your portfolio, you're never too young to start at that point. And the sooner you do it, the better, and you'll benefit from it, we hope.
Right, and I think that Yieldstreet does, and I've been covering you guys for even during my investment news days. That's actually how I met Malin. But I think that Yieldstreet does fun well. You do. You crush the social. You crush the content, the live events, right? So I think that the hardest part of that entire process that you guys have been working on, and did I turn it off? The entire process that you've been doing, the hardest part is going to be just the consistency. The consistency and the evolution, but honestly, off to a crazy good start. I really resonated with Malind. I think he was either on my podcast or I don't know. We've done a couple podcasts together, and I've interviewed him a couple times, and he shared, kind of the thing about alternative investments right now is that they do back to that personal aspect, right? You're not just investing in a stock or bond that you don't even understand or know, and it's like Vanguard this, okay, la-di-da, but instead you're investing in stuff that you care about. Like, is it a collectible? Is it what is it? And today, the pandemic fueled values to be top of mind, I think, before anything. So, and that's what Yieldstreet kind of caters to, which is cool.
Absolutely, and I think for us, shout out to the product marketing team, Peter, whose job I stole today, but he's hard at work from that perspective in his actual other job, not just hosting our podcast, but really the education piece and the fact that it is a platform, but unlike Robinhood or E-Trade, that they are merely the medium for investing in a stock or bond. They're not bringing them to market. They're not doing anything like that. We're bringing our offerings to market. So it's also on us to educate our audience and our members and really make it something digestible, because they are at all different levels. Not every one of them is an investment professional or a CFA. So these are people that are looking to invest, broaden their portfolio, really diversify their portfolios, and it's our job to make sure they have all the information in a very easy to digest way while investing, because at the end of it, they are big decisions too. It's not just like dropping $5 on a penny stock or something like that.
No, it's like $500, right? Is like minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah, and so what you can do is you can cater to, you have like kind of two audiences, right? And so because you've already like curated this audience of folks that have enough wealth to invest, say even $500 in alternative assets, then you can cater your content to that market, right? That's your core. And what you're kind of getting at is this other market that you can, or audience that you can cater to, which is the FinTech curious or the alternative investing curious. And now those audiences connect if you can create content that is so easily digestible and so easy to understand, but fun to understand for this person, the person that knows alternative investments, that's like in it, whatever, has been with you guys since the beginning, and then that also caters to the person that's curious, then boom, that's the content, like holy grail. And that's what I try to do with my audience. My audience is like FinTech professionals. I've got like the CEOs, the founders, those folks, and then but also I get a lot of outreach from folks that are just thinking about even entering the space for the first time, even though they've maybe been a marketer for years or whatever. But that's like the amazing part about content. You never know how, like, the kind of people you'll be able to bring into the fold.
So to bring all of that full circle, what content platform are you looking at as the next really big area to focus on? I know everybody's gonna hang me out to dry here for saying that over the last 12 months it's been TikTok. Where do we go after that, though?
Well, damn. You're stealing my answer.
Sorry.
I was going to say TikTok. So I'm not on TikTok yet. Oh, I am. But I haven't actually posted any videos.
We give you some pointers.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, like I have some videos from me doing interviews, which also come from the Yield, which thank you for helping me make my TikTok debut.
Shout out to Martin and Brendan for all the hard work at the video front. They're the magic.
Yes. I have recently been digesting a lot of TikTok. I've been kind of studying it. For me personally, the audience on TikTok, I think, will resonate a lot with the content that I create, because I think the TikTok audience is very interested in like a lot of information. They want to know like the nuances of what's going on in a space or what's wrong, or like they want to know about, I write a lot about the lack of diversity in our FinTech space. Like they would want to know about that and kind of the systems beneath that have created that lack of gender and racial representation in our industry. Like those are like the weeds that I'm getting into, and I think that a TikTok audience would be very interested in something like that, and I think that they would resonate with it more, whereas like say a Twitter audience is a little bit more interested in like the listicles or the more informational threads about a certain company or whatever. So
Twitter is probably the hardest nut
Twitter's
to crack,
hard.
I'd say.
It's hard. It's where I spend most of my time. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Nicole Casperson. But I'm excited to spend more time on TikTok. But fine. I mean, what's the next TikTok?
Are we gonna bring Vine back?
It's not Be Real. Be Real. Have you heard of Be Real?
I have.
Okay, just making sure. I only know about it because I now have Gen Z coworkers, so hopefully they're watching. But anyways, I don't know if Vine will ever come back. YouTube's trying with the shorts, but I don't know. I don't think anything's gonna top TikTok right now. I think it's the answer. I think Instagram's like the millennial. You know how folks are like, oh, I'm not on Facebook. That's like for my mom and grandma. It's like, I went to a comedy show at Comedy Cellar the other day, and the comic picked someone out of the crowd and was like, how old are you, sir? And he was like, 36. And he was like, cool, so what's your Instagram? Like he knew.
It's immediate. Yeah, you're definitely going to have.
He knew. But anyways, so I don't know. I think TikTok might be king for a minute.
Generation before us is going to be Facebook, maybe Twitter if they like yelling at one another.
They do.
We have Instagram for our generation, and then the younger ones are probably Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube.
Yeah. They still like Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat anymore.
Never really got into it. Couldn't say. Yeah.
Lost. The minute Instagram started doing stories, I was like, bye.
That is the one problem, though, with a lot of newer content platforms. They get gobbled up, or the features get ripped they get zucked more or less. And that's it. It took them all of a month to integrate the Snapchat technology into Facebook and Instagram.
You remember Clubhouse? What was Clubhouse? Remember Clubhouse?
There was just we were just talking about Clubhouse. We did a few episodes on Clubhouse, and then Fireside was another one that was Mark Cuban's. It was supposed to be a Clubhouse for podcasters, and we were in the beta group for that. It just did not. catch or take off, and it was a great concept, but wasn't really there. And
Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
Twitter Spaces happened. That's what happened.
Definitely. Well, hey, there was Periscope and Twitter Live at some point.
Gosh. All right, guys. We need to relax. There needs to be...
LinkedIn Live is another one.
I know. I got to be a LinkedIn influencer next. That place is popping.
You got to talk to Scarlett Sieber. She's the queen of LinkedIn influencers.
Oh, my gosh. Yes. But yeah, so I try to focus. I'm going to start to really hyper-focus on TikTok. For me, I think, speaking of FinTech and TikTok, I did a whole newsletter about this. There is, I deep dived, which means I sat on TikTok with the hashtag FinTech for a couple hours and just consumed what was on there. And there's like not a lot. It's like day in the life of someone that works in a FinTech company, and it's like back to the beanbag chairs and like the ping pong. And it's like, okay, no. So there's not a lot of actual information on TikTok out there about what this industry is and what it can really do and the real change that it's bringing to the world. Like, one of my podcast guests said this the other day, like, FinTech's the dopest place to be. It really is. Like, we're changing stuff about the most important, like, one of the most important systems that make our entire world go round. And we're at the heart of it. And that's pretty cool.
Constant innovation.
And that's really, really cool. So, like, yeah, you can at me. FinTech is the coolest place to be.
It's Nicole's hot take. We got it.
Exactly.
So that being said, I'd be remiss if I didn't invite our own FinTech influencer up here for a minute.
Okay.
Peter Kerr, come on up. You
Peter
played
Kerr.
such a role, and Nicole's been dying to talk to you. Come on. We got a mic just for you. Martin's getting up.
How's Joe doing? What's his grade for podcasting?
Subpar.
There's
a high bar to meet, but I will say very few people in this firm are as passionate about podcasts as Joe.
Come in the middle. You're a podcaster. Come on. Sit right here. You know how this goes.
Sit right here?
Sit right. You got it. It'll be okay. You're fine.
Get in here.
There.
My main question for you is, have you started listening to your own podcasts?
No, I absolutely refuse to listen and do anything that I participate in.
Peter, no.
Peter, did you listen to podcasts before actually hosting our show?
I listen to an occasional podcast, but not consistently where I subscribe and really follow on a weekly basis. But as I heard of one that I thought was interesting or maybe relevant, definitely pick those up as they come along.
There you go. All right. So we're gonna get you to be a podcast listener avidly at some point, even if it's not your own show. Yeah.
One day I'll get Peter to listen to Humans of FinTech.
It's on my list. I just
one day.
I listen to music
at least Malin's episode, at the very least.
Fair enough.
There you go. So did you see, we've talked a ton about traditional investing and then financial media, FinTech companies. You have a very traditional background in finance and investing. Being in a FinTech now, did you ever think this was going to be where your career wound up? Podcast host with just moonlighting as a senior product manager, marketing director.
No, absolutely not. My background was a little bit more traditional, as you mentioned. I knew I wanted to do something that was different and do something as a change. And Yieldstreet was a company that was on my radar for a couple of years. But even coming over here, I got hired for a job that I hadn't really fully ever done. And so with that came a lot of opportunities with things that were kind of out of my comfort zone, and stepped in and tried to do as much as I could where we could.
How you liking it?
Love it. Love Yieldstreet. Love the podcast. Love everything.
You don't have to say that just because Joel's sitting right there.
There's two cameras in front of him right now. What he's doing.
Putting him right on the spot. These are going to be testimonials for our careers page at some point.
All right. As someone who never thought because I wanted to be a journalist my whole life, so here we are. But as someone that maybe didn't ever think that they'd be like a content creator, welcome. And
don't tell him that he's a content creator now. I don't know. He's getting a little blushed.
He's a content creator. Just don't call me an influencer. But what is maybe your like favorite and least favorite part of the content creation process?
The part I struggle with the most is like obviously really getting your personality out there and really being comfortable with it. I think it's always easier to be a host than be a guest in that respect, because you get to ask all the questions, but you don't really have to perform always the same way as maybe a guest might feel too. The easiest part is I think naturally a little bit more curious. So usually when there haven't been many folks that have come on and where we've started a conversation where I haven't been generally interested in learning about their insights, expertise, and everything else. So I think that part has been pretty easy overall.
Yeah, that's cool. Being yourself is the hardest. Okay, so like if you ever were to go to my first couple episodes of my podcast, I can't do it because I'll cringe. And people tell me they're not that bad, but of course you're like your worst critic. But even when I used to do the podcasts, the news bites with you guys, I had like a show voice, and I'm not sure what that was. It was like what I thought I needed to put on to do this, because I've never done this type of version of content creation before. But I think you're right. I think it's the hardest part. It took me months to find your voice, and you're told constantly like, hey, just talk to people. When you do a podcast, talk like you would if you were at a bar or like lunch with a friend. That is a lot easier said than done. That is very hard. The minute you put a camera like this and stuff in front, a mic in your hands, like the only reason I'm this chill is because I've done this so many times.
Well, it's also a little bit performative too, where you have to get into the right mindset.
Yep, it is.
Which sometimes doesn't always allow itself, just given anything else going on in that day, personal life, work, or anything else. But you got to kind of, can't come through on a podcast. So part of that's also just getting like in a position where you feel like you can perform to, who the expectation is of you is.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been curious, and I don't think I've ever asked you, how did you feel when we were like, hey, you're going to start hosting this show, and it's not just going to be like every now and then?
He had no choice. You were just like, by the way.
That's how I feel. That's how I remember it. But I've never asked like what his feeling was, and now it's almost a year later.
You should have hosted like auditions. You should have hosted like office auditions.
Yeah, I think at the time we didn't have a ton of folks that probably were qualified to do it.
We were rotating, and I got to say, we had the asset class heads. We were doing one asset class a week at that point, so we were rotating between real estate, art, PBC. Like, it was a 4 to 6 week rotation, so the asset class heads would really do the blunt of it. But then we started bringing in the team from IR. So shout out to Mel, Georgina, and Bella, the original hosts of the show, and they would kill it, and they would all take turns depending on what asset class it was, what topic we'd cover that day. They did a phenomenal job stepping up, but it was really the one part. It was just on our own, and bandwidth time was consistency. So when you joined and being able to actually have a consistent host, I said it before, but it was really a godsend at that point, and we were just happy to have somebody that was going to lean into it and just take it on fully.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Certainly, I think we agreed to we'll try it out for a couple weeks, and then I think that just we never really got a chance to have that second conversation.
We're still not gonna. Don't worry.
It's exciting. Well, what's gonna happen for your next season? Or no, we're just at 100 episodes.
So
we're
just at 100 episodes. We're continuing to go. We launched Disruptors, which is Malin's show. So very similar, where he's talking to entrepreneurs and CEOs. That is actually seasonal. So 8 to 10 episodes per season. We do have, I'll officially announce it, and that'll hold us to actually launching it. We do have a seasonal art show coming out called Investing Artfully. So it's going to be all about the art market and investing, and really tie back into what we do here at Yieldstreet and how everybody could actually now have full access to investing in art. You're not going to need $36 million to buy a Basquiat.
Joe, are you making up these names?
Absolutely not. No, it was funny. We joked about this before. Disruptors, I think, came from our old head of content, and then Investing Artfully, we gave the art team probably 7 to 10 different choices, and they decided to go off menu and come up with their own. And so shout out to Rebecca and Susan for that awesome name there. But we're excited to launch that. Names
for your brand is hard. People ask me all the time how I came up with WTFintech, and I don't know, I blacked out or something, and it just came to me. I remember just writing out, word vomit on a Word document, just all these different things, and then somehow something magically comes together.
Selecting show names is always very, very difficult. I remember we had about 10 shows at Seeking Alpha, and a couple of them were made for clients of ours. That was always probably one of the hardest, and we'd always go with the most basic ones that they seem to be most pleased with. So
simple the better.
Keep it simple, and the KISS method typically never fails you.
Yep.
So I will pose the last question for you, Peter. Are you excited to do another 100 episodes?
More excited than the first 100.
As long as we get you back to Augusta, right?
Yeah. As long as we on the road traveling podcasts are some of my favorites. And yeah, more excited about the next 100 than the first 100. Much less concerning overall.
Yeah.
You're doing good. Don't worry. You could stop sweating. And I promise at some point we will have a budget for hair and makeup.
That's all I can ever ask for.
Nicole, any parting thoughts from you?
I also can't wait to have a budget for hair and makeup. In the meantime, I've been doing it myself. Anyways. But yes, I mean, going forward, right, the next 100 is going to be just it's always getting better, right? That's like the beauty of content is just like you get to, I have like epiphanies when I'm doing my own content live, like in the moment, and you're always evolving, and it's kind of fun to see the evolution of that and create your own like content cinematic universe. So, and you guys are doing it, and I'm doing it. So let's change the world, I guess.
We're all doing it, and we're all doing it the best we can.
Hey.
So, ladies and
Here's
gentlemen.
to 100 with a champagne.
That's, yeah. Still middle of the day, but maybe later.
Just kidding.
We do have lunch coming up, and I know all of our just Yieldstreet team members around us are chomping at the bit to get to our lunch day. So everybody, that's episode 100. I can't thank Peter enough, everybody here, Martin, our producer, Brendan, our social manager, everybody who's actually empowered and helped out on the Yield and had a hand in it. Thank you, but
Thanks,
definitely
Joe.
definitely not me, and it's definitely over the last 100 episodes, it's been the biggest team effort we possibly could, and everybody who's ever been asked to help with something for the show or beyond the show has just risen to the occasion at all points, from Michael, Malin to everybody in marketing. It's been an absolute incredible journey, and personally, I'm just excited to see what the next 100 episodes brings. So with that, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Nicole. And if you're not subscribed yet, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere podcasts will be found, YouTube, leave a 5-star rating. That helps everybody find the show and join our awesome community of listeners. Thank you, and see you next week.
Bye.